Three SEC teams remain in the college football playoff. We will be discussing what we saw in the first round of the college football playoff. Time to get our squad together.
You're talking ball with the SEC squad. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skin are prohibited. Squad up, you're part of the SEC squad.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into our Sunday Squad edition, reacting to what we saw over the weekend. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action throughout the rest of this NFL season, visit FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. Welcome in our squad today. We got Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss, John Miller from Locked On Mizzou. I'm Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC. And guys, we saw a couple of exciting games, a couple of duds of games, but nonetheless, depending on who you're rooting for, let's get into the action. We had Oklahoma jumping out to an early lead on Alabama Friday night and then letting it slip away, and the Crimson Tide rolling. We'll circle back to that in a second. I was in College Station yesterday for A&M's just absolute nothing of an offense against Miami as they go down. And I want to start here because we got Stephen with us. The Ole Miss Rebels basically looking like a well-oiled machine. Lane Kiffin, who a lot of folks in Oxford are saying, because the keeping everything else together seems to have worked as they shellacked Tulane. Basically a repeat of what we saw earlier in the season, Stephen.
Yeah, it's almost like a coach that spent 5.5 years at Alabama under the greatest of all time knows what he's doing in a situation like this. He knew that he needed to keep the systems in place. He knew that he needed to keep the continuity in place. And you saw that the players are more important than the coach when it comes to winning ball games. They're going to perform. They're going to go out and play for themselves, because the reality is, like, Charlie Weis comes to Ole Miss and for this game, and he calling that, and they asked Pete Golding in the press conference, were you worried about Charlie Weis Jr.? And Pete Golding said, not for a second, because think about this. Everybody has said for 3 weeks, this is Lane Kiffin's offense that they run. Well, Charlie calls the plays and always has. This is Charlie's one opportunity to go out and show that this isn't Lane Kiffin necessarily's offense, and that he is a pretty good football coach himself. And he went out there and the offense looked exactly the same. Honestly, Ole Miss was a sack fumble inside the 10-yard line away from winning that game worse than they won the first time 3 months ago. It was just a big thing. The pyrotechnics, the national anthem, everything was a big atmosphere. It was a celebration. It was a party by Ole Miss fans, and they deserved it. And especially after last year, because last year they had a 12-0 roster that they went 9-3 with. This year, they don't have as talented of a team, but they probably have a better team right now.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I thought retaining, it is Pete Golding, right? I'm doing this off the top of my head. But I thought at the time, you know what? I don't know what this is going to look like for the Rebels in the long term. I thought short term, this is a huge win just because of what you said. Continuity. Here's a guy who's smart enough to know we're on a playoff run here. Let's just keep the train on the tracks. And promoting somebody within at that moment, to me, that was the only move, especially a defensive coordinator. Obviously, retaining Charlie Weis Jr., too, a huge deal, like you mentioned, and how hilarious that sort of viral video of the Ole Miss fans at the on the tarmac cursing at Charlie. Boy, that aged well, didn't it? I loved all the sleuths out there. But anyway, I thought that was completely accurate. And one thing I noticed, too, and maybe underestimated a little bit coming into this, when it comes to Ole Miss against Tulane, that type of matchup, we talk about the grind of the SEC each and every week. Just having a couple weeks off there of rest, I thought it made a big deal there for Ole Miss.
Yeah, it was one of those things, like whenever you play these G5 teams in the playoffs, and yes, a G5 team can win in a bowl game, they can win in the regular season and all this, but that is usually when the playoff level team underestimates the G5 just a little bit. Once you get to the playoffs, you don't need motivation. You're not going to overlook your opponent. And I think that's the reason, like, Oregon just jumped out on James Madison in their playoff game. Ole Miss did the same. They scored a touchdown in 59 seconds on their first drive. And it's just one of those things that you're not going to slip up and beat a Power 5 team or a Power 4 team. You're going to have to legitimately do it because you're not going to be overlooked.
One of the all-time great backdoor covers in history by James Madison yesterday. Could you believe that? I was like, they covered the spread after all that? Unbelievable. If you think this is rigged, I can see why after that type of result.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate, and look, I don't want to take anything away from Ole Miss. If the people I talked to who were there said it was a party in the Grove, I mean, it was awesome. It was just the excitement of, look, we're going to be okay. You know, we lost the coach that helped kind of build this thing, but look, can this sustain without him? You know, it almost reminds me a little bit in different scenarios. When Nick Saban left LSU, Les Miles came in. People were like, I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain this, and largely he did. I mean, they got to a national championship and won it a few years later and all that. So it kind of feels like that, like rally around and let's do this. But devil's advocate, it was Tulane. They did beat the hell out of them earlier in the year. They did it again. Mm-hmm. How will this team look against Georgia right now, Stephen?
Well, against the Georgia Bulldogs, Ole Miss was really 1 4th and 2 stop in the fourth quarter away from beating Georgia in that game in Athens. And that did not play well. This game is going to be in the Sugar Bowl. There's going to be 30 to 40,000 Ole Miss fans in there. There's a chance that Ole Miss is going to be wearing the white jerseys and being the home team in that game. So you don't have to worry about a fourth quarter where Trinidad didn't particularly play well. If you remember and think back in that game, the crowd kind of got to him a little bit. He missed some passes that he was making just a couple of minutes earlier. I think Ole Miss is going to be in a better shape because the atmosphere is going to be fun. All of this played well together, like Ole Miss and Georgia matched up very well. I think this is the game of the quarterfinals, and I think it's going to be an incredibly fun one to watch because Georgia, if they beat Ole Miss, they are probably, in my opinion, the favorite to win the national title. They are an unbelievably talented football team. But Ole Miss just has something right now, and it feels remarkably similar, especially to Ole Miss fans, to the run that Ole Miss made in Omaha in 2022. There are some serious vibes going on right now about similarities of that. This is going to be a really tough game, and I think if Ole Miss can get past Georgia, Ole Miss might win it all. Seriously.
I mean, weirdly, with Lane Kiffin gone, it does galvanize your locker room. And as great of a coach as Kiffin is, I think everyone respects him, especially as just a pure X's and O's guy. Again, if we're so deep into the season here, it's not that hard to imagine that you can just keep the basic structure of what Lane has built already. And I don't even feel like that's trying to take anything away from Lane. Again, just short term here. I agree with you, Stephen. I think Ole Miss is a real threat here because we saw them play Georgia in Athens, like you say, very competitively. I think Ole Miss is being a little bit overlooked here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it will be a fascinating game down in New Orleans. To Stephen's point, you know, I'm actually was planning to already be in New Orleans, so going to be at the Sugar Bowl. It's always one of the best bowl events and everything leading up to it, the parade and everything else, but those hotels, go check out those prices today. They're going up and up. There's a lot of folks going to be trekking down from North Mississippi, West Tennessee, all those different areas going to be trekking over to New Orleans for that Sugar Bowl. And look, Georgia travels well in itself, but there's that hunger for this Ole Miss fan base that hasn't had this before, that they are willing to shell out whatever it takes to get down there. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's second mortgages being taken out right now. They're going to serious. I am dead serious about that. They're going to find a way to follow this run all the way to its conclusion.
Yeah, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and obviously our run might be on the downslope right now. I'll just say, as time goes along, yeah, those Super Bowls, the desire to go, hey, I've already been to a couple. Do I need to go to the fourth or fifth one? Georgia fans are fighting that human nature a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, I think Georgia was in the Sugar Bowl just last year against Notre Dame.
Exactly. That's
like, okay, right. Here we go again.
Exactly. Whereas like Missouri was in the Sugar Bowl in the LBJ. No, before that, like the Kennedy administration or something like that. So right, exactly. A whole different level of excitement, obviously.
And so many fun fun storylines. You're gonna, the Mannings and their connection to the Sugar Bowl. The Manning Award is presented, on behalf of the Sugar Bowl. So you're gonna have Archie will be down there, and the whole Manning family. Eli, I know, was at the game yesterday, so you'll have that connection. Pete Golding being from Louisiana, getting to come back to the state. I mean, there's just gonna be so many fun storylines in this one.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And it's kind of funny that the moment Lane Kiffin gets out of the picture, all of a sudden the Mannings are all over the place. Archie's speaking with the team. Eli's at the game. Going back to the Peyton, Tennessee thing back in the day, I think there was a grudge that was happening at that time. And it's going to be great. This is like the 11th Sugar Bowl that Ole Miss has gone to in their history. That, like, Georgia has gone to 12. I mean, it's in this game, it's a very historic thing. And Ole Miss fans, because of the gap that they had from 1970 to 2015, there's a specialness of an urgency and all this that has been put on the Sugar Bowl. It is a massive, massive deal for Ole Miss to be playing in this particular game. It doesn't matter which of the other 7 opponents it is. Playing in this game is a huge deal.
Yeah, it feels very non-traditional, of course, but hey, you win the game, you still get that Sugar Bowl trophy for your trophy case, don't you? I mean, I think those, like flags fly forever, trophies stay in the case forever too. By the way, have you guys seen the line for Georgia Ole Miss yet?
Yes, I think Georgia's favored by 6.5 or something like that, according to
now
FanDuel.
Up to 7.5 over at
Nice.
FanDuel. I have to
Go
say that
up.
surprises me.
Go
that
up.
really
Give us all the
surprises
points.
me, Steven. Over a touchdown, I think that's a little high. I got to be honest with you.
Georgia's playing well. They are playing really well right now. I don't think it can be understated exactly how much improvement they have made in the last month and a half of the football season. This is going to be a very tough game, but I'm going to say, go off of that environment when they were absolutely up to play. It was a tight, competitive ball game for 4 quarters, and it's going to be again.
I just think 7.5 to me, that's more of an Athens line than it is a New Orleans Sugar Bowl line. I think on a neutral field, especially like what we just talked about, maybe leaning more toward an Ole Miss crowd, that's just a little high to me.
Georgia travels well. Georgia
They
travels
do.
well. So,
I'm just saying it'll be 50-50, I think, at worst. I mean, neutral field, I think will be very neutral.
One more, Steven. What's the thought on the health of both the starting quarterback and the starting running back? We saw Trinidad kind of get shaken up. He came back in. Kewan Lacey got hurt, left, came back, and then left again. Where do you think their statuses are?
Trinidad Chambliss, they were testing him for concussion, which he passed. So he came back in the game. Trinidad's fine. He's going to play all good. Kewan Lacey, one of those running back shoulder type deals. He refused a brace or a cuff at halftime, came back in, kind of re-aggravated the same thing. If he wants to play, if he is down with going, Kewan Lacey is going to play against the Georgia Bulldogs. It's not anything that's going to keep him out.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and like I said, I'll be down there, and a lot of Ole Miss fans will be down there, and a lot of Georgia fans will be down there. They're hungry for it. Look, Georgia, it's been a couple years since they've won a national championship, right? That fan base needs a championship, So no, it's certainly going to be a lot of fun. When we return, guys, let's. You got any other thoughts on Ole Miss, Steven, before we roll on?
I'm just very excited. I've got, as you can see, all of my playoff gear is starting to come in. It's been pretty slow. So coming up to the Georgia game, we are going to have a good time enjoying that, because no matter what happens from this point on, this is an amazing season for Ole Miss football, and it's a free shot against the Georgia Bulldogs.
That is a red shirt, right? Somebody said
yes,
orange.
it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's red.
Like, since what is Ole Miss orange?
Need some color correction post here.
I've got different color lights around for the effect for my show, and sometimes that affects the red. It is what it is.
All right, when we return, we'll switch gears. Let's talk about the Tide rolling in Norman on Friday night. With that, we'll get to that coming up next. All right, well, first, guys, NFL Sundays move fast. We got one today, and one big play. Suddenly, everything feels different. You can make it even more exciting with live betting over at FanDuel. So exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And look, they got all the college action up there as well. We got the playoff lines are up there. All the NFL action, live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up throughout the game. You could bet the next touchdown score, drive results, totals, whatever it is. If you want to be right in the middle of the NFL action throughout the rest of this season, visit FanDuel.com. Place your live bets all season long. It is FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. All right, guys, let's get into Friday night's playoff game. Talk about overreaction, Jackson. Man, we're watching Oklahoma move the ball up and down the field on Alabama. They're scoring points. It's a 17-0 lead, and you're like, I mean, everyone on social media was burying Alabama. The Tide should have never been in this playoff. Kalen DeBoer's a fraud. This team's a joke. And suddenly a couple of things happen. A blocked punt here, a pick six there. Bama's back into it, and they never look back as the Tide rolled 34-24. I was pretty shocked, guys, because I thought that home field advantage, that crowd rocking, sold-out crowd, like I just thought, I don't see how Alabama wins. They've been playing so inconsistently the past few weeks, but my gosh, was that a big win for the Tide.
I think Oklahoma would be playing Indiana right now. If there was a play in the second quarter of the game, Oklahoma was up 17-0. There was a 3rd and 2. John Mateer broke out of the pocket. He could have ran for 25 yards. It was completely open. He tried a deep shot that was dropped by a running back on the 15-yard line, and everything turned. I think the next play was the dropped punt. The next series was the pick six. And at that point right there, you could literally see Oklahoma kind of peeing down their leg with what was going on, because when Alabama gets going, there's two schools in the SEC that when momentum truly gets on their side, it can be a problem, and Alabama's one of them. And once they started stemming that and affecting the crowd, Oklahoma got really tight because they knew what was coming. And at that point, it was on Oklahoma to make an offensive play, which honestly they haven't done all year, which means Alabama just was able to come back and take care of business. It was a heck of a day by Kalen DeBoer, because everybody said in the first quarter, there was like, oh, Michigan interview. They were making all those jokes online. By the end of the game, all those same people were being pretty quiet.
Yeah, I don't know who was more cocky up 17-0. It was either Notre Dame, whoever's running Notre Dame social media, or it was the combination of Brent Venables and John Mateer. Because to me, when you look back at this ball game, you got a 17-0 lead, and yet somehow you made John Mateer throw 41 passes to Ty Simpson's 29. You look at, he carried the ball 19 times. Of course, that includes sacks. Just to me, you're putting it all on this guy's hands, on his shoulders a little bit. A guy who has been injured, a guy who refuses to take the easy play sometimes, as Steven points out, at the trying to always get the big chunk play, doesn't really know how to manage the game, apparently. I just think Oklahoma kind of mismanaged the lead in the game a little bit. Now, obviously, hey, the dropped punt, I mean, there's nothing the coaching staff can do about that brain malfunction there. But the pick six, I mean, John Williams and Jay Smith, our Sooners guys, pointed out that that's a play that's an exact kind of pass that John Mateer has been trying to throw for a pick six all year. How about this? You just saw your punter drop the ball, maybe hand the ball off a couple times. I know the analytics people don't ever like to turn around and run the ball anymore, but I'm telling you, there's a reason that the teams that win could run the football. I truly could not believe how much they put of that game on John Mateer's shoulders. That was my biggest reaction.
A few plays, to Steven's point, yeah. So Bama it was 17-0. Bama finally responded. They put together a drive. They go down. They get to the Oklahoma goal line, and it's 4th and 2 at the 10. And rather than take the field goal, Kalen DeBoer says, "Let's go for this." It works out. Lottie Brooks catches the touchdown. It's 17-7. Ole Miss or Oklahoma, to what he said, was what, 3rd and 3 at midfield, basically. And John Mateer rolls out, nothing but green space in front of him. And then hits a wide open running back, drops the pass. If they score there, that's what, 17
24-7. 24-7.
Right. Yeah, it would be 24-7. And I don't see how Bama comes back from that. Instead, the drop punt, I mean, it's just, there's so many plays here. Even right before halftime, what y'all were just saying, it's 17-10. If Oklahoma is not bold and trying to get points, if they just keep it on the ground, at worst, you go into halftime with a 7-point lead. So there was just so many things that had to happen for Bama to get back in this, and they all happened.
Yeah, the only thing that was crazier that I saw yesterday was the Bears come back against the Packers. I mean, that was about the only thing that I saw was less likely. But I like that you brought up Lottie Brooks. I mean, he was incredible yesterday. I mean, Ryan Williams is a guy who's been kind of MIA all season. We've heard a lot about Jeremy Bernard and Josh Cuevas, but to me, Lottie Brooks was absolutely incredible yesterday.
Yeah, I think this is a good matchup also moving into the next round. I think Bama versus Indiana is probably a better matchup than Bama versus Oklahoma would have been.
An early thought on the Alabama-Indiana matchup.
Yeah, I think Alabama matches up defensively. They're going to give Indiana's offense a lot of trouble, and defensively, they really have a high ceiling, even though that they can be gotten by a running quarterback from time to time. And sometimes some things can look a little bit weird. They can be really, really good. They might have the highest ceiling in the entire league if they can eliminate the explosives.
I think the emergence of Brooks and just, again, the rest element, something that I think I underestimated a little bit, just essentially having a week or two off, even if you're Bama. They had to play the SEC title game, of course, but I know Ty Simpson had been banged up a little bit. I just think maybe Alabama can get a little bit back more toward what they look like, the best version of themselves in the middle of the season versus a team that looked a little bit worn out and lifeless in Atlanta for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I think I still have to favor Indiana, though. I mean, they've proven it all year. They won the Big Ten. I just don't know what more they have to do to not be a significant favorite here. And, well, they're 6.5-point favorites over at FanDuel right now. That seems fair to me. It really does.
That's where Fowler and Herbstreit's going to be at the Rose Bowl, right?
I would assume so.
Yeah.
And look, I questioned Indiana last year. They didn't play anybody last year, and did they deserve to get in? This year, the win at Oregon was, I mean, Oregon doesn't lose games at home. So that was a monster feather in the cap. Give them the win over Illinois, right? Illinois was ranked in the top 10 when they beat them early in the year, just steamrolled them like 63-10. And then the Big Ten title game. I mean, I would say legit, really good Ohio State team. And you held them to just 10 points with Jeremiah Smith and Julian Saint and all that. So I think Indiana is going to be up for the test. But I was listening to satellite radio this morning, and Dari Noka said this about Alabama. He goes, they're this enigma team. They got all the talent in the world. If they put it all together, Alabama can win the national championship. They can also go out there and lay a big fat dud, get sacked 8 times, and lose a crooked number in Indiana. Like, that's what this Alabama team is this year. It's like, who's going to show up?
Yeah. I will say this about Indiana, too, and I think this has almost been forgotten, certainly not in Bloomington, but one of their biggest pass rushers, Stephen Daly, injured himself in the celebration in the Big Ten title game. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. I mean, this could be a potentially huge deal in that game, something I don't hear a ton of people talking about, but pass rushers don't exactly grow on trees, and that's one of the biggest differences with Indiana this season versus last year is how much better they are up front on that defensive line. So that's definitely something I'm looking at.
There's a comment in there saying I look like Billy Bob Thornton. That's not true. I might sound like him, but I don't look like him.
You've got way better hair.
Yeah.
Steven's really into oil, too, much like him. All right, gents, when we return, we will get into the other game, the game I was at yesterday. It turned out to be just an offensive debacle. We'll discuss that coming up next on the reaction edition to the first round of the playoffs. Hey, first, guys, there's nothing like college football season. Of course, all the different playoff games happening. And if you want to actually get tickets, that part can be frustrating, but not with our friends at Gametime. Gametime gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You open the Gametime app, you look at the upcoming college football games, and you're going to be surprised how fast it will be to find great seats, whether it's the Sugar Bowl matchup, the Rose Bowl matchup, want to get an early jump on the national championship. The app is currently is incredibly easy to use over Gametime. You'll go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. Seeing college football tickets starting as low as $25. Make it easy to plan a game day trip, and knowing prices include all fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. Go take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Hey, real quick, guys, do want to remind our listeners about our Everydayer Club. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already, go check out our Everydayer Club. You get access to ad-free audio feed on whichever Locked On show you're looking for. It's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. And you get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of whichever show you're looking for. And, of course, if you do it for an SEC show, you get access to our SEC chatter as well. You can check that out at lockedonsec.supercast.com, lockedonmizzou.supercast.com, lockedonolemiss.supercast.com if you're looking for any of our shows. All right, gentlemen, the other big game of the weekend yesterday. This is the game that I thought should have been in prime time. It sucks that we got Oregon James Madison last night, but it was number 10 Miami at number 7 Texas A&M. I was there. College Game Day was there. All the fanfare, the excitement, everything in the buildup. And my God, we found ourselves in a nothing game at halftime. Points were at a premium. The first touchdown wasn't scored until the final minutes of the game. Miami pulls it out 10-3. But what did you guys make of this? I saw Josh Pate in the press box. I said at halftime, I said, "You're probably enjoying this, you sicko." He's like, "Oh, I'm drooling watching this." I'm like, "Yeah, I bet you are." But what'd you guys make of it?
I think it set offensive football back about 45 years. I mean, it was pure 1980s football. I halfway expected Bear Bryant to be going against somebody else, and he's like Vince Dooley in the late 70s, early 80s national champion. That is what that game felt like. And I understand the elements were there, and you said the wind off air was swirling in the stadium and all that. It was two teams that were basically doing a clinic on how not to play special teams, and then Marcel Reed just threw interceptions at the exact wrong time. I do have a feeling that SEC Shorts, when they put out their video, they're going to play up the battered Aggie thing that they've been doing the last couple of weeks, because that absolutely showed out. Because you have to wonder if Colin Klein was just distracted by Kansas State and all of that with the way that offense performed. And I don't know if it was all on the players. It could have been game plan, but Miami defensively, they are legit. They're going to be a problem. They have the athletes to match up with an Ohio State. That game could be a lot of fun too.
You know, you were saying Josh Pate seemed delighted in the press box. At halftime, it really seemed like Mike Elko was kind of delighted too, just that halftime interview. I think he kind of liked where his team was and thought, hey, we're just going to grind this thing out and win it. And I guess they would have if Marcel Reed hadn't thrown that terrible interception and in the red zone there at the end, and of course had some other poor moments. But you do have to give credit. I mean, these are two very good defenses. Texas A&M was known more for its offense this season, but statistically a very good defense as well. And it just seemed like Mike Elko time and time again was drawing up really good blitz schemes and attacking that Miami protection. And then yet, ironically, it was going the other way against Texas A&M, and it just didn't feel like they had any adjustment. It felt like every time they were trying to block 5-on-5 or 5-on-6, and Reed just simply was not able to get the ball out quickly enough. They weren't able to the A&M receivers, which are very, very good, weren't able to separate enough, at least not against that Miami defense, which was clearly playing into that wind a little bit and playing tight coverage, I thought, and kind of daring A&M, hey, throw the ball over the top against that 25-mile-an-hour crosswind downfield. Let's see how that goes. And I think they hit a couple of them, but it seemed like, boy, the risk-reward calculation by Mario Cristobal and the Canes, I got to give him a ton of credit there. I thought they had an unbelievable game plan that obviously they executed well, which against what was thought to be one of the best offenses in the country. I think A&M, maybe the last few weeks or so, I think that Secret was maybe out a little bit. There wasn't quite as good a performance, but still, Miami took the game from them, I thought, defensively.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting, I forget the analyst that was on, I think it was ESPN earlier in the week, he said that hey, Miami has the athletes on defense to match up with these Texas A&M wide receivers. And that was going to be a major thing. And they absolutely did that. They completely took away the Texas A&M passing game. Le'Veon Moss coming back wasn't enough for them to get anything going. And it was just a poor performance by Texas A&M's offense. And I do genuinely feel bad for A&M fans and what was going there. But yeah, that was a bad look. I do like where Miami is for Ohio State. That's going to be a fun matchup whenever that happens in the Cotton Bowl to see how that goes. But let
me defend Marcel Reed a little bit, because I saw so many people, at least on my YouTube comments, on Twitter, saying, "Oh, this kid sucks. He can't throw," and all this. I'm going, wait a minute. He's 20th in college football in passing yards. He threw for 3,100 passing yards this year, 25 touchdowns. Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion made him a passer this year. Last year, that was true. He couldn't throw last year. He was just a runner. They got 2 big-time pass-catching weapons with him this year. He just had a really bad game. I mean, there were plays where he had a receiver wide open, and he just threw it at their feet, or it was just a bad throw, and so he had a bad game. And look, Miami was maybe to give them credit for it, but it's funny how many Miami fans I saw going, "Why aren't we running Mark Fletcher more?" It felt like every time Fletcher touched the ball, he was
his mom was saying it, that's for sure. She was going, "Give my boy the ball." She was right. It was working.
Yeah, he was either breaking a big run or like trying to break a big run, where he's like dragging Aggies behind him. And so I thought that was a little bit surprising. But go ahead, John.
Oh, no, sorry. I wasn't going to say anything.
What I was going to say is, as we kind of start to turn the page here and look ahead, because look, I was on the field right after. There was a lot of Aggie players walking off the field crying. I mean, the fans were chanting for Mario Craver. He's coming back next year. He's already announced that. Marcel Reed in a podcast announced he's coming back next year. So if you look at A&M next year, it's going to be different because they're going in-house. Holman Wiggins is going to be their OC. The Colin Klein's gone. I just wonder, what's that next step for A&M? Look, they got all the money in the world to go buy through the portal and do what they need to do, but it almost feels like nothing against Holman Wiggins, but I want to bring in a quarterback coach that can come in and hone and really get the best out of Marcel Reed next year.
Yeah, and you might need to honestly pull what Lane Kiffin did at Ole Miss the last couple of years and maybe try and recruit over and find the Spencer Sanders to push Marcel Reed or take the job himself. This is 2 bad games in a row for Marcel Reed, because this game happened to where the fourth quarter was bad, but let's not forget about the Texas game. They kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter of that game as well. I mean, Marcel Reed has all the talent in the world, especially running the football. I thought his escapability and pocket presence and all that got them going a little bit early on in the game. They just couldn't put first downs together, and since nobody could kick field goals in this game, which was utterly freaking ridiculous, you get this abomination of a football game that we ended up having. But can you imagine if it was 2G5, if it was James Madison and Tulane playing that game? Can you imagine what social media would have been like?
Yeah, we wouldn't have been given as much credit to the defenses, that's for sure.
Well,
I'll just say this on Marcel Reed. I put him honestly in the same category as a lot of college football quarterbacks who in the above average category. But to me, it always comes down to what can you do when it's not so easy. Almost everybody in the SEC level as a starter is going to look good when it's 2nd and 2 and you can roll out on a play action pass, or you've got every option in the playbook. But what about when it's 3rd and 8? That type of thing. And what about, by the way, when coverage is tight? And that's what I saw against Miami, because a lot of quarterbacks, when almost all quarterbacks really, even saw this with Patrick Mahomes a lot this season, when there's tight man coverage out there and there's really nowhere to go with the football, no obvious places to go with the football, no open seams in a zone, that type of thing. Well, what do you do? What is the answer? Well, for Marcel Reed, mostly, I'm going to take off and scramble. When that works, it looks good. When it doesn't, well, you saw what the A&M offense looked like. Again, I just think when you overwhelm teams like Texas A&M can against teams that they're better than, well, yeah, Marcel Reed's going to look great. When you play against a team like Miami or a team like the Texas Longhorns, it's a little bit different of a story, isn't it?
When those windows get smaller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it just kind of spawned, and as we kind of start to wrap up here, guys, I did want to open the topic of, we know Marcel Reed's coming back. At least that's what he said. We'll wait for, I'm sure he'll do some big grand announcement on social media. And the new verbiage is they're negotiating, right? They're negotiating a new deal. They've worked out a new deal to keep him. Okay, great. But John, your guy, Bo Prabula, I think shocked a lot of us in announcing he's going back to the portal. So does Mizzou stick with Matt Zollers next year? Do they go back to the portal? It just kind of opens up an avenue. And this morning we saw Ashton Daniels at Auburn. He's in the portal. So does that mean Deuce Knight is there? Or is Byron Brown still maybe coming over from USF? It's just the landscape of the quarterbacks in the SEC next year is very much up in the air.
Totally. Yeah, I truly don't know what Missouri is going to do. I could see them rolling with Zollers, and I could see them absolutely trying to get one of these top guys. The more I think about it, I think they probably will be a real player for one of those top-end quarterbacks. But we shall see, because you brought up Prabula. I think one of the reasons he's not back at Missouri probably is price point. It'd be one thing if, hey, we'll bring you back at a lower price, but, there's probably some teams out here that are more interested in him maybe than Missouri. Maybe that's a reunion with Penn State. Maybe that's a reunion with James Franklin down at Virginia Tech. We shall see. If he doesn't go to either one of those places, I'll be really interested to see what his market is. That's for sure.
I will say this about the transfer portal. It is wonderful for content creators,
of course,
because the month of January is going to be absolutely nuts.
Well, give me a thought on your team, Stephen, because we saw several Ole Miss players announce they're coming back next year. Suntarian Perkins, re-ups, I'm coming back. At Will Eccles, I'm coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad Chambliss fighting for that extra year. We don't know if he'll be back. There's rumblings Lane may pull him to LSU. Where does Ole Miss go? Do they double down on Austin Simmons if he does leave?
I think the quarterback next year for Ole Miss is either going to be Trinidad or Austin Simmons. It's going to be one of those two. I think they're going to end up losing Kiwan. Kiwan is going to make some money after this season. That somebody is going to pay for that, and we'll see how it goes. I do think that Ole Miss is going to be able to retain a lot of the pieces that made them very good, especially on the lines of scrimmage. I think Will Eccles next season has a chance to have a Walter Nolan type year. I mean, he was basically an All-American this year. I can't imagine how good he's going to be next year. We'll see. I haven't dug into personnel for 2026 too much because we're still doing 2025. And that's kind of where my focus is. But once the transfer portal window opens up on January 2nd, you can kind of start doing that calculus because you see who's getting into the portal and what you need.
Somebody asked me, is Gunnar Stockton back at Georgia next year? I said, where's he going? I don't think he's done enough to wow NFL scouts. Yeah, he's had a great year, but I think Gunnar Stockton's a lock to be back. And then the other one is Ty Simpson. He's getting talked about as a first-round pick potentially. If he goes, Bama they've barely even played Keelan Russell, or is it Austin Mack? I don't know. That it's just going to be fascinating looking ahead to next year, whereas a lot of SEC teams already are. Who's going to be Florida's quarterback? That's a whole other one too. So all offseason to dissect it, but I just thought that was topical given John's quarterback entering the portal and today Auburn's starter entering the portal. So we'll see how it plays out. Last thoughts, guys?
I just think Ty Simpson's probably going to go to the draft. It seems like everybody else is coming back to school. If I were him, this seems like my moment. I would definitely go in if I were him. And to the idea of, hey, where's Gunnar Stockton going to go? That was kind of my reaction when I heard about Marcel Reed saying he was going to come back too. I don't see him as an NFL guy or anything at this moment. And again, was he going to go to another school? I mean, Texas A&M will pay to keep him around. So, yeah, that was a pretty non-shocking development there.
Yeah, of course, the biggest one will be Arch back at Texas. But go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, my thing is Georgia fans, Alabama fans, Ole Miss fans, thank Santa for what's going to be an incredibly Merry Christmas heading up to New Year's Day and all of that in the college football playoff. And then we get more tricks and more treats doing a Halloween metaphor with Christmas with the transfer portal opening up the next day. So this is probably becoming my favorite time of year. It used to be the first week of March Madness. It is kind of becoming this period.
It will never happen. But could you imagine a world where Lane Kiffin steals Arch over to LSU. And I mean, like, if I could write that story, I'd love to see that one. Just the effect of the college football world losing their collective minds. Texas would lose their minds. I mean, it would be insanity.
Yeah, after seeing how the Manning family is reacting to this whole situation,
Right.
yeah, that might be the least possible thing to happen.
It'd be funny though. Arch goes there. They go to Oxford, and Archie and everybody's wearing Ole Miss gear, and they're like booing Arch.
Hey, Ole Miss plays at Texas next season, so you're going to. What is everybody going to wear? Cooper. I know he respects his son. He's a huge Texas fan because of Arch. I also know he's a pretty big Ole Miss guy. So I imagine that he's probably wearing an Ole Miss T-shirt under whatever Texas outfit he's wearing in the stadium that day.
That is going to do it, guys. Thank you guys for tuning into today's show. Make sure to subscribe and follow whatever your favorite SEC show is. Locked on SEC, Locked on Mizzou, Locked on Ole Miss, or any of our shows. And hey, if you need a last-minute holiday gift, or someone keeps asking you what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access where you can chat with all of our hosts, and subscriptions can be gifted over there at whichever show is, lockedonsec.supercast.com, lockedonmizzou.supercast.com, and so on and so forth. That's going to do it. We'll talk to you guys throughout this week right here for an all-new edition of our SEC Squad show.